StableLM, a new open-source language model. It's fantastic that more orgs are releasing open-source models trained on more than 300B or so tokens. Here's my take from the details I could find. Pros: 4096 context width versus 2048 for Llama, GPDJ, etc. 3B265B released or in progress. RL-tuned models available. Trained on more tokens than existing non-Llama models. 128 head DIM, so can use flash attention, unlike GPDJ. Cons: no benchmarks released, or details about the model. Somewhat restrictive license on the base models, and NC license on the RL models. Small models only trained on 800B tokens, compared to 1T for Llama 7B and potentially more for other upcoming alternatives, Red Pajama, etc. I'd like to see their loss curves to see why they chose 800B. High level, this is likely to be more accurate than existing non-Llama open source models. It's hard to say without benchmarks, but benchmarks have been gained by training on benchmark data, so really it's just hard to say. Some upcoming models in the next few weeks may be more accurate than this, and have less restrictive licenses. But this is a really good option nonetheless.
128 head DIM, so can use flash attention, unlike GPTJ. Mind explaining why this is so attractive, what the hurdle is for the laypeople in the audience? Me.
Standard attention has memory quadratic in sequence length, whereas flash attention has memory linear in sequence length. Also, flash attention is faster.
Small models only trained on 800B tokens, compared to 1T for Llama 7B. Llama is trained far beyond chinchilla optimality, so this is not as surprising to me.
3B265B released or in progress. Seems they want to do 3B2 175B, although 175B is not in progress yet.
It's not efficient to do 175B. Training a smaller model 65B on more data gives better performance for the same compute.
I tutored this yesterday. Selling access to LLMs via remote apps is the stage plays on the radio stage of technological development. It makes no actual sense. It's just what the business people are accustomed to. It's not going to last very long. So much more value will be unlocked by running them on device. People are going to look back at this stage and laugh. Like paying $5 a month to a cell phone carrier for Snake on a feature phone. Web apps need data persistence. Distributed databases are really hard to do. Often have network effects, where the size of the network causes natural monopoly feedback loops. None of that applies to LLMs. Making one LLM is hard work and expensive. But once one exists, you can use it to make more relatively cheaply by generating training data. And fine-tuning is more reliable than one-shot learning. Someone has to pay the price of computation power. It's in the interest of companies to make consumers pay for it up front in the form of a device. Being local lets you respond faster and with access to more user contextual data.
This doesn't seem technically feasible to me. The state-of-the-art will for a long time require a lot more hardware to run than it's available on a consumer device. Beyond which, inference also benefits from parallelization, not just training, so being able to batch request is a benefit, and more likely when access is offered via an API.
I don't think it's going to happen in the next few years. The prices are going to drop like hell, but ain't no way we run models meant to run on 8 NVIDIA A100 on our smartphones in the next 5 years. Just like you don't store the entirety of Spotify on your phone, you're not going to run any decent LLM on phones anytime soon. And I don't consider any of the small Llamas to be decent.
The only thing I can say to this is that Apple have seemed laser-focused on tuning their silicon for ML crunching. That focus is clearly now going to be amped up further still, and that in tandem the software itself will be tuned to Apple silicon. GPUs, on the other hand, are pretty general purpose. And 5 years on a focused superlinear ramp-up is a long time. Lots can happen. I'm not saying it's 100% or even 80% likely. It'll be super impressive if it happens, but I see it as well within the realms of reason.
Apple's new M2 Max has a neural engine which can do 15 trillion flops. NVIDIA's A100 chip, released almost 3 years ago, can do 315 trillion flops. Apple is not going to close this 20x gap in a few years.
But ain't no way we run models meant to run on 8 NVIDIA A100 on our smartphones in the next 5 years. M has been working on an AI chip since 2019, so I think we will.
We're stuck here for a while due to the size and cost of the larger models. The main reason I want a non-cloud LLM is that I want one that's unaligned. I know I'm not a criminal and I want to stop being reprimanded by GPT-4. What I'm most interested here is fine-tuning the model with my own content. That could be super valuable, especially if we could get it to fact-check itself, which you could with a vector database.
Absolutely a giant fan of stability, staying to actually open source licenses, and not licenses that impose restrictions on what you can use it for. This is the future of AI. Beware of any org that uses ethical licenses. They are not open source. Stability is one of the few organizations that actually cares about free software. You love to see it.
These fine-tuned models are intended for research use only and are released under a non-commercial CC BY and CSA 4.0 license in line with Stanford's Alpaca license. This is a no commercial use allowed license. It is neither considered free software nor open source, the definitions of which disallow restrictions on what you can use the work for.
I am definitely not in favor of OSS license for models, GPT-3. Not unless they're aligned well. There are all sorts of horrible use cases that these could be used for. Supportive. We build models to support our users, not replace them. We are focused on efficient, specialized, and practical AI performance, not a quest for godlike intelligence. We develop tools that help everyday people and everyday firms use AI to unlock creativity, boost their productivity, and open up new economic opportunities. Refreshing take on the peak alarmism we see from tech thought leaders.
This is just marketing. They're positioning themselves as somehow more human while building the exact same technology. When a model supports me by doing the work I'd otherwise hire someone to do, the model just replaced someone. And this goes without saying, but a large amount of outsourced tasks today don't exactly require godlike intelligence.
StableLM is the real OpenAI. Thanks for this.
Well said. OpenAI is a promise unkept. Thanks StableLM for existing.
I'm curious if this will give better results than Llama 7B. Llama 7B felt like a toy that, while cool to be able to run locally, did not feel useful in any way when contrasted to the state of GPT. Here's hoping for better and/or release of larger parameter models with low performance requirements soon. Edit. My first question times out when ran online. Seems like Hugging Face is getting hugged to death.
If you're comparing to chapped performance, then Vicuna 13B would be a best comparison point for something Llama-based.
This is absolutely huge. Llama weights leaking was a big deal, but you couldn't actually use them without attracting Metadesire. Would love to see some benchmarking versus Llama and GPT.
Do we even know if model weights are copyrightable or not?
What is IRE?
For people wanting to run it locally, you can fit the 7B model just into a 24GB VRAM GPU, e.g. 3000, 94,000, 90th. The 3B model appears to be much more reasonable, but I would say the output is of limited quality based on the few tests I've run thus far.
Amazing, but the instruction fine-tuning is still a huge challenge for businesses, since what is released cannot be used for commercial purposes. Instructions are much more useful. I have a feeling that there are probably some people who will look at the commercial OK license for the first part, and in their mind, that will somehow make it okay to use the instruction-tuned ones for commercial purposes. Maybe we don't really need instruct stuff, because it seems like it's a huge amount of redoing work. I wonder if the Open Assistant people will start building off of these models.
The AI war has officially begun.
No, that comes when China catches up in the quest for superintelligence.
Is this a joke? I tried the Hugging Face demo, and it just spews out ridiculous replies for everything. Examples. Greater than what can you tell me about Therese Johaug? The person you're asking about is Therese Johaug, the judge, a Norwegian jazz violinist. She played with many famous musicians, including and especially Charles Mingus. She was born in 1954 in the town of Kolsås. She is married to the violinist Mark Sorensen. Everything in that statement is wrong. She is a Norwegian cross-country skier, born in 1988 in Dalsbygda, not married. Okay. Let's try something easier. Greater than what can you tell me about Edvard Munch? He was born in 1821 in the Dutch town of Spikenis, in what is now the Czech Republic. He studied art at the Academy of Fine Arts in Brussels, Belgium, where he made a portrait of a young girl called Anna. He then moved to Norway to practice with his friends and Dano-Norwegian painter, Christian Krogh, the two of them known as the Scream, or Christine in the Black. There he met the painter, Ambrose Thomas, who became a very close friend of Munch's and would often take him to the beach to watch the boats. One day in 1883, Munch bought a house at a deserted place in the outskirts of Oslo, in the southern region of Norway. The house, called La Chute, had no inhabitants at all. It was just a huge pile of rocks, but this Munch loved it so much that he named it Locht. He took the name Munch because he thought it was German, but it was totally French. He had the idea that he could paint the ocean and the sky. So he named his new painting Moulin Soloso. At the same time, he would soon start creating works of art that would be strange and not make any sense. For instance, one summer day in 1870, he painted what is known now as The Scream. It has many other paintings with the same title. The Scream is a drawing of a young girl. She is holding an axe and is crying in the scream position. He had the idea of The Scream in one sitting in 1883, but it took 6 months to paint. He stayed in France in the studio of Christian Krogh when he was still Edward de Badely, one of the greatest painters of his time. In 1891, he returned to Norway to France and lived there for the rest of his life. He died in Paris in 1900. Christ on a bike. My favorite must be that The Scream is a drawing of a young girl. She is holding an axe and is crying in the scream position.